Now I would like to introduce Mr. Florian Kastner, who is a PhD student in German Studies at the University of Connecticut. Prior to coming to UConn, Mr. Kastner earned a master's degree in comparative German studies at the University of Heidelberg. His research interests include contemporary literature related to youth cultures and literature dealing with human rights, as well as the integration of human rights content into teaching German as a foreign language. Today, on behalf of the Student Working Group, Mr. Kastner will present a number of proposed theses on the topic of human rights crisis and the role of literature, which the Student Working Group hopes to explore and collaborate on over the course of the coming year. Welcome, Mr. Kastner.
Thank you for the introduction, Michael, and many thanks to the co-directors of the HRRC in Connecticut, Katharina von Hammerstein and Sebastian Bogenstein, and the co-directors in Baden-Württemberg, Silja Wernicke and Bernd Kortmann, who made this event possible today. In the following few minutes, I will pursue the question that we dealt with in the working group of graduate students. What might the role of literature be in times of crisis? Will fictional texts affect our reality? After an introduction, a selection of theses will address possible impact on societies and communities in which a state of emergency has become a daily condition. The relationship between literature and human rights may be less evident than literature's relation to related, yet less specific phenomena such as crime or war, both fully established as literary genres. Literatures and human rights share much common ground that will be discussed in more detail later. The working group's interests revolve around the transfer of human rights into literary texts and other forms of art. As early as 1945, Jean-Paul Sartre discussed a form of engaged literature that not only entertains the reader, but also appeals to society's responsibility. Then, as now, when analyzing engaged literature, the following questions arise. Are there shared tendencies among texts narrating human rights violations despite their shared theme? Do human rights violations pose specific challenges to literature and art? Already in ancient Greece, Plato claimed that the fictions of the poets could be beneficial for a society if they pursue the goal of shaping the characters of young people in the spirit of the state. This brings us to thesis 1. The shift of authenticity and truth creates new perspectives. In the post-factual age, the question of authenticity and truth is essential. The generous shifting of the boundaries of truth in different areas of society often leaves dissatisfaction. Literature, on the other hand, has no claim to truth or traceability. The written word is flexible. Or in the words of Hannah Arendt, storytelling reveals meaning without committing the error of defining it. The freedom to play with reality in literature and to shape it at your own discretion creates an experimental space in which fundamental challenges of societies can be negotiated. 1984 by George Orwell is an example of the negotiation of human rights in a fictional framework, with a discourse about the work being carried out in real life after its publication. Over 60 years after Orwell's book was published, it gained new popularity after details of the NSA's prison program were published. Thesis 2, recognition of the victims and their lost lives. After violent crimes, the phenomenon can often be observed that the perpetrator receives more attention than the victim. Literature can help save people from being forgotten, especially those whose lives have been forcibly taken. The members of the terrorist organization National Socialist Underground killed 9 migrants and 1 policewoman in Germany between the years 2000 and 2007, and carried out at least 43 additional murder attempts with racist and xenophobic motives. The 5-year trial against the main perpetrator and 4 accomplices was heavily represented in the media. The victims, however, were almost forgotten. Referencing Shakespeare's drama, the German Jewish writer Esther Dischereit wrote an opera libretto titled Flowers for Othello. It recounts the crimes, but above the victims of the National Socialist Underground. Dischereit mentioned in an interview that the language of the poets is different from that of the journalists. The poet can empathize and take part of the suffering. Thesis 3, art leads to activism. Consider a quote from Susan Sontag's publication regarding the pain of others. Compassion is an unstable emotion. It needs to be translated into action or it withers. The encounter of human rights and art and literature also marks an actualization of the tension between arts and activism, a form of artistic representation. A great number of contemporary works and institutions of art are invested in the theme human rights, staged more or less explicitly as means towards social and political change. One could name the work of forensic architecture, the theater productions of Milo Rau, of films such as IYY's Human Flow, which was screened in the course of the Human Rights Film Festival. But also fairs and biennales throughout the globe see an increasing investment in political questions and often attempt to counteract institutionalized histories and of exclusion and Western dominance. In 1998, the action artist and theater director Christoph Schlingensief organized a performance titled Bathing in Lake Wolfgang. Lake Wolfgang is in Austria, where then German Chancellor Helmut Kohl owned a house at the waterside. Schlingensief invited all 6 million unemployed in Germany to take a bath in the lake so that Kohl's house would be flooded and the water would be up to his neck. He wanted to draw attention to the precarious situation of the poor. The action failed when only 100 participants showed up, but due to its originality, this performance received extensive media attention. Thus, the focus was again directed to the topics that were actually unemployment and poverty. He made his point and brought publicity to the issue irrespective of the failure of the stunt. Coming to my conclusion, in addition to legal institutions, the negotiation of human rights also needs spaces in which new concepts can be experimented with and implemented in fiction within the protected framework of art. Literature and the fine arts take on a variety of tasks. They are components of cultural memory and shape self and worldviews, open perspectives, and create memory space for those who have otherwise been forgotten, lack a voice, or may be silenced. Thank you very much for listening.